at you, Barbara.
This week, SEMA is on the horizon, and the ghouls are building a Hellephant housing tribute to a terrifying movie monster. Christine.
We're coming back on the air.
So as a lot of people know, I'm not a big fan of flying, so I do a lot of driving. I drive down to Vegas every year to the SEMA show. Last year, I was presented with the Hellephant engine.
That's right, this Mopar Hellephant Crate Hemi engine delivers a staggering 1,000 horsepower along with 950 pound-feet of torque. This Hellephant is a beast.
1,000 horsepower, 950 foot-pounds of torque.
There is a good friend of Mopar here at SEMA. He has been my partner in crime for a couple of years. Mark was on stage with us.
Come on up, Mark. Where are you at? There he is. Mopar, no car. Yeah.
Mopar or no car.
By the way, that engine's yours. You can use it in one of your project cars coming up. How about that? Are you serious?
Why not take the most evil crate engine in the world against the most evil car in the world, which is Christine. So the car that I bought is a 1958 Plymouth Belvedere. Now you can't tell me that's not going to be the coolest.
It's that was the best car at SEMA.
Period. I believe even back in 58, the trim package rule kind of applied like it does on a Roadrunner or a GTX. So for example, a GTX is the dressed up muscle version, luxury businessman's version of a Roadrunner, in a manner of speaking. The Roadrunner is a muscle version of a Satellite, and a Satellite is a dressed up version of a Belvedere. All right, so it kind of starts way in the basement like that and works its way up through the models. It is a little earlier than the cars we're used to, but it has significance because of the cool movie Christine.
It's your favorite movie.
It is one of my favorite movies.
That's why we're doing it.
Fury would be the top of the line 58 model. That's what Christine was. Mine being a Belvedere was right in the middle. A Savoy would have been even a more stripped down basic car. They have no illusions. I know that it's a 58 Belvedere that we made look like a Plymouth Fury. Take a look inside this bad boy. Can't tell me that Hellephant isn't going to fit beautiful in there. Look at the room. Look at that room.
There's plenty of room for it. Are we going to soup up the brakes or anything?
No, you don't need to.
They're already souped.
Why would you want them souped up?
Already souped up.
We make it look like a Fury, which is exactly what they did when they made the movie. There's only so many Furies, so they were using Belvederes and Savoys too, just dressing them up to look like Christine the Fury. I never care about how fast I stop. I care about how fast I get there.
There you go.
Okay. My dad's ridiculous, like always. It's the same thing. It never gets old for him, I guess, with the lights and the smoke and the fog machines and all that.
Grand entrances.
The car is awesome. I do have a few concerns just because it's a little bit earlier. The year is a 58, and that's a little bit out of our wheelhouse. I know that my dad's capable of it, but it just stresses me out a little bit because I know that we're gonna run into problems, like we do. And so, yeah. And how long do we have till SEMA? The clock's already ticking, so.
Not enough time.
Never,
Yeah.
never.
And I'm sure my dad will wait like start at like 36 days before, so it's always
God, I
great.
hope not.
Yeah.
Like that. And like this. Boy, I'm so nice to see that this isn't all rusted. I was scared to death it would be destroyed. I honestly didn't end up with any surprises on the disassembly. The guy I bought the car from was very forthright. He took as best pictures as he could. He oversold it bad points, not undersold it, which is what a lot of people do. So, like, I really appreciate that. He wanted to make sure I didn't get it here and be under some kind of a illusion that it was a better car than it was. The truth is, I kind of felt like it was better than what he represented. He really kind of painted a picture for the worst, and it was better. I knew I had floors, I knew I had the bottoms of the rockers, I knew I had the bottoms of the quarters, all had to be treated, and a trunk floor. When they say that's what it is, usually it's halfway up the doors, halfway up the quarters, halfway up the A-pillar, and you're doing the entire car replacement. In this case, yeah, there was chicken wire and barn siding and mud packed 4 inches thick on the quarter panels. It was ugly old repairs that people did back in the day. They had to do something. That car was probably rusty by 1965, and some kid gets it or some farmer gets it. He's not gonna go out and invest in that inexpensive of a car. They're just gonna make it work. It was utilitarian, and it did work. If you look at the picture of that car before we tore it apart, at a glance, it looked pretty darn good.
So we'll have to put it on the hoist to get the pitman arm loose.
Yeah. Do we raise it up?
Yeah. Right there?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Oh man, look at that. This car's falling apart.
There we go.
We can lower back down now, huh?
Cool.
Bleeding.
Oh.
Whoa. Whoa.
There we go. Burton, got it? Yep. Gory tear apart for a gory book.
I guess we can get our dash out now, huh?
Yeah, we can.
In the case of Christine, the body, the pretty part, the part you see with your eyes, it lifts up off of the actual chassis itself. That's a big difference between what we do with our cars and that. I like it because you can gain full access to the chassis.
How awesome is it going to be to build out that whole Hemi right on here?
Beautiful.
You can access everything.
The frame is in really nice shape. The body's what I expected exactly. I got to get on the phone and see who's making what and get some metal coming for it. We'll get this moved outside and we'll start setting up for the dipper.
What? Jeez.
Careful, Dennis.
It's a piece of crap, Arnie.
If she could be fixed up. Yeah, she could be real tough.
Forget it, Arnie. This thing's got 43,000 miles on it. Probably 143.
I don't care.
I bet the thing won't even start.
She'll start. You'll need these.
How much do you want for her? I mean, whatever it is, it's not enough.
Jeez, Arnie.
Once you have the body removed from the chassis, it's a real straightforward R&I. So you have engine, transmission, exhaust system has to be removed, leaf springs, torsion bars, front suspension, and all of a sudden you got a bare chassis. The frame itself is in great shape. It was solid, it wasn't damaged, it wasn't wrecked. All the mounting points for the cab as well as the suspension were perfect. The only downside to it was it's heavily pitted. All right, so right now we're getting ready to set the Hellephant engine down on Christine's frame. I took a K-member out of a 1970, I think it was out of a Roadrunner. I cut the motor mounts off where they weld onto the K-member. I mounted them on the frame exactly where the factory would have if they would have used those. I didn't measure it, I didn't do anything. I just put them exactly in the same spot. This would be off of the 70 Roadrunner, like I said. They're all the same, all the wedge engines. This one over here, slightly modified, but basically most of it, 90% of it, is off of the Roadrunner. So they're setting exactly where the factory mount sat. I am a believer that that's going to set right down in there. Doug?
They're crooked.
Okay.
They're crooked.
They're crooked. Doug says they're crooked, and they may very well be crooked. Are you saying it will not go in?
I think we can set it on there.
Okay, but you think it'll need some modifications?
Yeah.
Okay. Doug could be right. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Come on in.
I think it should drop in just like it would on a regular K-member.
All right.
There it goes.
What's so funny?
Nothing.
Well, it fits.
I'm sorry?
It fits?
It fits, it fits. How about that? Very rarely am I at complete peace when the car goes off to be dipped, because there's always unknowns. If it comes back from the dipper and it's got Swiss cheese up and down both sides and the roof needs to be replaced, we're in trouble. We don't have time and they don't make the parts. We won't be able to make our SEMA vent. The metal dipper that works for us, we keep him really busy. He's always got at least 3 or 4 cars of ours over there. It can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months to get one back, because it depends on what the backlog is like.
We can't get the cars in and out of here fast enough. We get them disassembled, they go in order, and it's almost at the point where when he delivers one, we take one right back out to him. He probably makes his salary every year just off of us.
It was a huge relief to find out that the body was in nice shape. I knew it had floors and rockers and bottoms of the quarters. I knew that stuff was going to be like that, but I expected, or at least was worried about, more. We've been working hard on Christine. So the frame got sent out. It was powder coated. Before it was sent out, we fixed, or I should say modified, the engine mounting area from its original 318 to be able to accept the Hellephant. So that is back. As soon as it got back, Doug and I went to town on building out the suspension front and rear. So what we want to do today is we want to put the Hellephant in there. With that, we'll have the engine and the transmission in it. We'll lower the car down onto it and find out if there's any modifications we're going to have to make to the body before we start doing body and paint work on it. So I'm not worried about whether the engine and transmission will fit in the chassis. They already did. I get it. It's that if we set the body down and there's major modifications that have to be done to the firewall to clear the back of the supercharger or the back of the block, it could actually ruin our ability to get it done on time. Got it. Okay, we're gonna take this thing down now, move it outside. Once it's outside, we're gonna find out if we have enough clearance between the firewall and the engine, and if we do, we can take the body back off again, start doing body work on it, and finish plumbing this bad boy out. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have you lower the car down. I'm gonna watch for clearance. We've already done some measuring we're probably pretty close, but if you look right here at these body mounts, these physically have to go through these holes right down here. So if that thing comes down right, I know this is gonna be close to the firewall, just like it was in our Superbird. Are you ready to try that?
I am ready.
All right. Okay, why don't you go ahead and start lowering it down. You're clear, you're clear. Keep going. This is looking really good. That's it. Look at that.
We're on?
The body setting right down where it's supposed to, exactly dead in the center of the holes, that's a win across the board. That's Hannibal, who said, A-Team. Was it Hannibal from the A-Team who said, I love it when a plan comes together? Not the Hannibal that made Mig swallow his tongue. Are you still optimistic about SEMA? We got, what, like 80 days? That's more time than we had for the little dead wagon. We'll make it. We'll make it. I guarantee we'll make it. All right, so today we got a rear clip from our friend down at Big M Automotive down in California. It's a really nice, solid rear section. It's off of a 4-door, but the key pieces that we need are exactly the same as the 2-door. He also brought us a used floor section, which is also out of a 4-door. So I got together with George and Adam, and we started plotting out exactly what's going to be involved. Now, George and Adam have both worked for me. I think Adam's about a year less than George. I think they're both in the 5-year range. When they first started working with me, they were pretty raw. But now, I can give them a car like this where all hands are on deck, and I feel so comfortable knowing they know exactly what's going on in my head, and they can translate that to the car.
Put the trunk flooring in this in at the same time?
That's what I'm wondering, is if we could get away with that.
Looks like it's got spot welds right here, goes around, and it comes down right here, and it looks like it's probably spot welded on the inside of that.
The name of the game right now is, now that we have those parts, I can cut the guys loose on it. So they're getting ready to start cutting and trimming Christine. Once that's done, we'll cut and trim the donor pieces, match them in there. As soon as we know exactly what we have, we'll send it over and have it dipped. Meanwhile, I have both fenders, the doors, and the deck lid completely done, and the hood. So we're just waiting now for Christine's body to come to life. As Arnie would say, show me. The level of difficulty in sectioning a floor in, I mentioned it before, it's high. It's one of those things that if you don't do it right, a multitude of things can happen. So I felt like it was important for a time standpoint and just having another set of hands and another set of eyes, because I make mistakes too. I know you find that difficult to believe at home, but I do. And so I felt like we're all in this one together, so I'll put in the extra hours in the evening, the extra weekend time, and just work side by side until I get to a point where I can cut everybody loose and say, start welding. But when it comes to the intricacies of these cuts and making sure that everything is right, I felt like I should be heavily involved. So Christine is about to get her new used floor section. You've seen us do floors before. Usually they're brand new floors, so it's a little bit different process where in this case, we're putting the floors, the inner, the outer rockers all in as one unit. When we lower this car down, these are gonna guide up into here, each one in its own respective position, and then we're gonna set the gap, the high and the low. Once we have these two all collected and put together, pinch welds are all in place, we can raise the back up into place. When the back is raised up into place and we dial everything in, we can start welding. Putting the trunk floor with the bottoms of the quarters on as one unit was about as difficult as putting the main floor in with the rockers as one unit. There's a lot of intersecting points. You got to intersect it with the wheelhouse. In this case, the left-hand wheelhouse, we actually sectioned it and put a portion of the used one on with it. So you had the intersections at the wheelhouse, at the trunk floor extensions, at the quarters, at the bottoms of the quarters, and the rear body panel. All had to be measured within 1/32 of an inch of where they need to go, so you had room to weld on them. So yeah, it was very, very difficult. If anybody thinks it's fun or easy to do grinding on these cars when it comes to the welds, you're wrong. It's a lot of time. You can't overgrind it. So if they're working on a car like this that has probably 8 hours, hands-on, constant welding between all of the sections of it, you're gonna have at least that much time cleaning it back up. Grinding, sanding, smoothing, getting it ready for filler, getting it ready for primer, getting it ready for paint, getting it to a point where our goal is to have it look like we never did anything to the car. Once the guys had all the grinding done on the car, we were in a position where we could put our rear body panel on. We are on the very last stages of the metal work on Christine. So Adam has been just a pit bull for me. Thank you very much, doing a great job. This car came with a new old stock rear body panel. It's a very hard to find part. The original rear body panel was rusted on it. Our donor rear body panel was rusted, so it was very fortunate that we got this NOS part.
It takes 24 hours to set up, huh?
For a full cure, 24 hours, I think at 65 degrees or something like that.
Mark loves panel bond. He loves panel bond so much. I don't know. That's his go-to on everything, panel bond it, which is a great product and it works. But yes, Mark loves panel bond, and it did work great on that rear body panel for Christine. So it definitely is a great product to have.
So this is that area I was talking about. I won't be able to get the spot welder in. So in this case, I'm just going to use some of this. And because there's going to be an inconsistency in the heights of the metal, I put it on a little bit thick. If it squeezes out, that's fine. I just want to make sure that it's highs and lows for metal. It can be kind of like that. You want to make sure that it all gets filled up. But you have to have clean metal.
And it's got to have good grooves in it.
And it's got to have a little bit of etching, so that grinding of the 80 grit I had you do will take care of that scuffing. So that's nice and thick there.
Nothing you want to get on your hands, huh?
Well, if you get it off while it's soft, it's fine. If you wait till later,
yeah,
you're not getting it off. You have to sand it off. Okay, so
like so.
Yeah.
Get our clamps ready. There was a lot of welding, a lot of patchwork, just a lot of detail that you got to put into every one of these cars. Christine was a little bit more because we had a crunch time to get her done, so it was a challenge.
All right, looking good. Need to leave the vice grips in for that and that. So now we're ready to go up and do our spot weld. With having the timeline as short as it is on this car, I felt it was important that I helped out with every aspect of it. So that's the straightening of the metal, the shrinking of the metal, getting things lined up to where they're supposed to be before we actually start doing mud work on it, then the mud work itself. I ended up doing some body work on the fenders and the doors, welding up the original holes. That was important. The original holes are never going to line up the way they're supposed to. Even from the factory, those body side moldings go like this and then they flatten out. I don't like that look. I wanted to have the same trajectory all the way down, so I needed to weld up all those holes so I had a good, clean canvas to work from. So if I had more time, honestly, I would be working on this stuff all the way around the clock. I love doing metal work. I think it's the most rewarding part other than the final assembly. You take a car that is rotten, you put new panels on it, you shrink the metal, you make it flat, straight, put the filler on it, sand it down, you've just transformed a car. In the case of the 58 Plymouth, that's really nice metal to work with. It's thick. The cars today, rubbish, because it's all high-strength steel. You can't use heat on it. It rips if you try to pull it. But back then, it was mild steel, so it was malleable. You could work it over. It got a little harder to work on over the decades. But 1958, that was good steel to work with. This is a fun car for me to get involved with. So right now I'm outside with George, and we're getting ready to do the shrinking on the quarter panels. These quarter panels are real long on the 58 Plymouth. They're long, the metal is stretched almost 4 feet from the top to the bottom, so what tends to happen is an oil canning thing. So we're gonna shrink the metal around it so that we don't have that thing sinking in on us while we're trying to do our body work. So George is gonna be inside with the dolly. I'll be out here with the hammer and the torch. Right, Georgie?
Yep.
All right, let's turn this old torch on. What do you say, Georgie?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, I came up doing body work really self-taught. Around the mid-'80s, I hired a body man, nice guy. Okay, now with that nice and hot, you up against it?
Up against it, go.
He was a really good body man, and he showed me how to do things I didn't know existed. Normally, I would just cut the extra metal out, weld it back together, but he showed me how to do heat shrinking. Now, I call that an old body man's trick. I still have an oil can. It's tighter back here, but now you can see it moving here. So I'm gonna have to shrink this area about 3 inches in front of it.
Okay.
Right there. That's right in the heart of where the problem is. So it's fun to take the young guys, like I once was, and show them all these neat little tricks. Ready?
Ready.
The best thing anybody could do if they wanted to be in the body business is to get around an old guy and spend time, because he knows all the tricks and how to get it done. Now you look, see how stiff that's getting? It doesn't fall like it did. It still has just a little bit, but that's pretty damn solid right there. Yeah, we've got to get that shrunk. That's gonna come back on us in the mud work if we don't. Okay. Okay, right in front of that, right?
Yep.
Here we go,
Let's go.
We are finished with all of our metal work, so we're really right now down to just working on the body, which is good because I think we have like 45 days now until Christine has to be at the red carpet event on Monday night, which I will be driving. Probably won't wear this shirt, although I think this shirt speaks volumes. Well, you know, I don't care what anybody says about my shirts. I'm wearing my creature right here. People love these crazy things. People love my little shirts. I have a whole little following on Twitter. Hey, everybody in Twitter land. And they actually start watching from the top of the episode to see how many shirts I have and what they say. So the ones they really love are the old movie ones like this, Creature from Black Lagoon. We grew up watching the old 8mm movies, and people like it. I haven't had anybody say it's a stupid shirt. Well, the Buffalo Bill's body lotion had a little pushback, but you know, he was a serial killer, and in fairness, you know, to his victims, he shouldn't have been glorified, and I'm sorry. You know, being involved in all the metal work and preparation and the filler work on this car is good. It allowed me to show some of the guys the tricks like we talked about with the heat shrinking and of the metal and that kind of thing. So one of the things I've learned over the years is just how versatile that panel bond adhesive can be, because it's impervious to moisture if the stuff that is going on is clean. You got a sandblasting area, you don't want to go over rust. The car's already been dipped, but flash rust starts instantly. Whether you're putting filler down or panel bond adhesive or primer, the metal needs to be clean. There's nothing wrong with panel bond adhesive in those areas. It's hard to weld in there. This is a perfect answer to it. After you have all the body work done, take your time and make sure the panels still fit. Just because they fit once doesn't mean they'll fit again. Cars move, cars settle. And so go over it, make sure that the doors fit like they did the first time you did it. Make sure the deck lid fits, make sure the hood and the nose and the fenders, everything fits like it's supposed to. Do that as many times as you can, right up to the point where you hand it off to your painter and let him go to town on it.
Shaping is an art form. It's a true art form that not many people even do anymore. I mean, a small handful of shops actually put that type of time in.
If you're talking about a car like Christine, it has a lot of curves on it, has a lot of style lines. Having the right amount of dishes that flows into the rest of the quarter because it's more blunt at the front, deeper at the back. That's an art form. You're really in there trying to find the original metal to follow so you can put the filler in to smooth it back out.
Getting a panel flat is very rewarding because it is a lot of work. You don't know if the metal guys have went all Fred Flintstone on it and run all over it, and then trying to get it straight again, and then going out to get the body work done on it, and then the prime and then block and then painting. There's nothing better than getting one all freshly cut and buffed and put the car together, and it's like a sheet of glass. It's very rewarding.
The reason you hear me go on and on about the metalwork is because the metalwork's the canvas for the paint. We want that car to shine. We want that car to be straight. We want it to have good door gaps. So if you want the car to be perfect or as close to perfect as possible, you have to make the metal perfect. You can't fix everything with mud. That's why I go on and on about how much goes into just the metalwork on a car like this. So in the case of the seats, as many things on this car, I had to learn about the differences between a Belvedere and a Fury. I learned those from Fury Jim. He was to the 58 Furies, or the future look cars they call them, that I am to the Mopar muscle cars. He knows everything there is to know about them. Because he knows all those things and I didn't know any of those things, he was really very generous with his time. Jim did the patterns for the seats, which I would have been just guessing from pictures how those go. So he was a lifesaver when it came to building this car. When I started my shop in September 1985, I was a young fella. When you start your own shop, you're used to working long hours. So to work a 12-hour or 14-hour day, anybody that owns their own business knows that pretty much goes with the territory. Now back then, I could work all those hours and still go out and pot it down. So now I'm 57 years old. So at 57 years old, when you go out there and sand on a car for 8 hours after you've already worked an 8-hour day, it can beat you down a lot more than it did when you were 25 years old. In fact, Christine wiped out both of my hands, just so you know. I had carpal tunnel syndrome so bad, my hands were going numb all day long at work after I was finished with that car. I'm not as young as I once was, and I recognize that. I know I won't be able to do this forever. It would be cool to think, I mean, maybe I could do this for another 20 years. That would be pretty cool. I've got a lot of cars out there, so if I drop dead tomorrow, there's gonna be a lot of disappointed people out there. I'd like to think more than just for the cars, but I don't know, wife's got insurance, so. C'est la vie. You know, like I said, everything's metal, so the rear armrests in this car, the substructure that your arm would rest on, that's a metal piece that screws on. Well, the metal, where it met the floor, where the original rockers and floor were rotten, this was rotten too. So George and I had to fabricate the lower 2.5 inches, if I recall, on each one of those bucks for the armrests in the back. So I've never minded doing fabricating work. When it comes to just thinking out a panel, drawing it out, measuring it, making a nice cut or a break, that's the fun stuff. So the equipment that we've got out there right now, it allows me, who's really not that good of a fabricator, to look really good. A lot of the pieces and panels that we had to make for the car, besides the used ones, we had to hand fabricate them. And that was a blast for me.
In the perfect world, we prime and block something twice, we're good to go. This one, the quarters were just a struggle. So we primed and blocked probably 4 or 5 times, just trying to get it. And at SEMA, you can't just say, oh, it's okay. I mean, it literally has to be perfect. Everyone's looking at it. Everybody wants to crucify you for something wrong. So I had both my guys on it day and night, you know, blocking this car and priming it to get it to look the way it does.
The main thing I'm concerned about is just making sure all the panels are nice and flex. They're big, long quarter panels, and all the fenders are nice, long, and they have big round edges, so you have to make sure everything's nice and evenly rounded. A lot of wax and degreaser, check it a lot, make sure it's flat. Just kind of use a guide coat for the most part.
We still use our PPG primer, 70/50. It's just thick. It's almost, when you spray, I try to keep it no more than 4 coats, but when you put 4 coats on, it's almost like like you're spreading glaze coat, a real thin coat of Bondo or plastic filler over the whole thing. It's that thick. It dries, it doesn't swell, it doesn't shrink, doesn't do anything crazy. And once that thing locks up, it's 100% cure, it's rock hard. That primer's the best in the world.
Hey, Cunningham! Is that you, Cunningham? not mad, are ya?
You know, it's surprising on some of these cars, we get lucky and we get them back from the dipper and the cars look great. And it's amazing that the cars have made it as many years as they have without a wreck. And for Christine, you know, even though it was repaired for, like, it was done at Home Depot, you know, there's still a lot of good parts on that car. The repairs that we did are just the typical repairs that happen on all these cars. You know, we're getting to the finish line on it, and it's a matter of, yeah, the car fit yesterday, but let's double check it again, because stuff moves. Until it gets the suspension underneath it, that car's consistently settling, no matter how much it's braced up. So it's the day we're painting it, it's a matter of, let's just take a deep breath, you know, walk around everything, make sure all of our fitment's still good, our lines look good, double check everything, have Mark look over it, and then roll right into painting. It's nice that even with this old style car, when it comes to painting the dash and the parts and pieces, they all come out as one. You get them all painted. This one's going body color and it's shiny, which isn't a factory option, so it's really cool. It really ties the car together nicely between the steering wheel, the dash, matching the color of the car.
Like with any of our cars, if you can bench test something before you put it in, you want to make sure everything's working on that dash stand, just like you would in one of our regular cars if we just got it back from Instrument Specialties. You don't want to take a dash in and out 50 times because something's going to get damaged. Make sure on the test stand that it works the way it's supposed to, then put it in the car.
Because the metal work took so long, we were already addressing doors, fenders, hood, deck lid. We have them painted already. It's a single stage. Just count how many coats are going on the parts and do the exact same thing on the car. So by the time I get the car, shoot the body, shoot the roof white, cut and buff it, get it over to assembly, and then you can go ahead and hang the doors, fenders, and get the car put together. It just depends on the way the build falls. This is the way this one went. So as opposed to waiting for everything at once, let's just knock out as much as we can ahead of time.
You know, I've been a painter my whole life, and I've painted some big cars, not just metaphorically, not just big like long cars, but I mean, big dollar cars. I obviously could paint Christine, but my hands aren't what they used to be, right? So, I mean, it's okay. But having said that, sure, I'm a little envious that I don't get to paint that car.
Came in this morning, had the guys start on wet sanding Christine first thing. While they did that, I was painting some parts and pieces. Then, even though we've had a year to plan for this, this is where Mark comes out. Now keep in mind, this is real time, just like last year. He's had no sense of urgency. So he chooses today, Friday, comes out and says, that car's gotta get painted, it's gotta get done. I need it painted now, I need it undercoated tomorrow, and I need it on the body by Sunday. Luckily, we can't do too much without the film crew here. So it slowed things down a little bit to where get the car painted today, undercoated this weekend, then we can hang the body on Monday. So it's completely flipped everything upside down here with 17 days left to go. Last year I panicked because I was the only one out here doing everything. This year I have two really good helpers. So while I was doing parts and pieces, I can push the car outside, say, hey, get it wet sanded, get it washed, put it in the booth, and then we can mask it up. So you got 3 people working on it as opposed to just 1. So as long as it gets painted today, we'll be in good shape in the paint and body shop. Everywhere else is a cluster. So there's a little confusion on what color the car should go. Some people went this way, some people went that way. We went with 1980s GM Spectra Red. It's one of the most beautiful reds out there. So when this car is buffed out and polished, it looks really deep and really rich. And it's a little bit different than what we do here normally. So it'll really stand out good with all the chrome on the car. The good thing with this color, it covers pretty quick. 4 coats and you're done. I've went in already, I've got the first 2 coats on. Everything looks absolutely perfect so far. So as long as no craziness happens, then we should be good to go. 2 more coats and I'm done. The car's been a pain in the butt from the get-go. You know, I know everyone at home is gonna say, oh, it's Christine, it's Christine. Well, if it's Christine, it should do itself. So it's not Christine, because we're the ones still having to do the damn thing. But there's a level of difficulty in every car that you do when you have this short of a window. You know, when Mopar gave that engine to Mark last year in Vegas, we got a year. And when we came back to the shop, Mark told us what we're doing, what the plan was. So literally, we knew the second we landed, we're building Christine. Awesome. And then yet, in the magical world of time, we put it aside. And a lot of it has to do with the film crew and producers because they want to get all these magical shots for you people at home. You know, like where I fell out of the car. Yeah, that took 2 months to film. So if you take all the little things that they want to shoot for these great intros out completely, probably would have sped up the process. I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm tired. We started this crazy thing 6 hours ago. We went downhill since. But on a good note, the car's done. It looks beautiful. I'm hungry. I'm gonna go home, have fish sticks. I told my girlfriend that already. Nobody else seems to want to join me in that, and probably have a rum and coke, wind down, and get ready to come in tomorrow. But the car looks really good. They have a lot of going for them in the assembly shop. We should be on track. There's really no other option. We got 17 days left, so the good thing is that's a lot of work for Mark's department.
The pain, the hours, the flash burned eyes, the hands that are cut to ribbons, the wrists that are completely numb from carpal tunnel, amazingly get better when you see the car on the rotisserie and it's painted and it's beautiful, and it's like, well, first off, it's an awful short period of time, but more importantly, it's an awful beautiful job. It's moments like that that you feel pretty good. You forget about all that pain. That's what theoretically is supposed to power you through those awkward times, those rough times, because you knew the finish line was coming. Well, in the case of Christine, the finish line's here. It's beautiful, it's red, it looks exactly like the car from the movie, and we're just beginning. We're just beginning the assembly of that car. We are one quirky show. Anybody that's watched it, you got your haters. Oh, they hate on you. Player haters ball. Chappelle Show hating on you. Then you got your lovers of the show. We can do no wrong. Somewhere in the middle, you have the hundreds of thousands of people that watch every week. All I'm saying is, we keep Graveyard Cars fresh. We change it up. The beginning of this season, we tried something that I wanted to try. You didn't like it? Not my problem. Have your own show. Turns out, my crazy ideas were the highest ratings of the season. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who came up with it. The bottom line is this: Super Bowl 2021 halftime show. There's rumors floating around that they may end up talking to the ice tray. I'm not going to do the halftime show at all. I just made that up. So, lies.